What's up, guys, and welcome back for another EVE Online solo mining episode 48. It's been a minute, but I figured I'd give you guys kind of an update on everything that I've been going through. And this past month has been pretty crazy. I haven't really been playing a lot of EVE, and a lot of it has just to do with, real world stuff, just kind of being busy and all that stuff, but my goal is still pretty strong in the sense of just kind of going full bore into just solo mining. But I did before I kind of went on hiatus, and I do go on like hiatuses quite a bit from pretty much any game that I play. But before I did that, a lot of the tunes that I was using for mining alts, I ended up converting them back into essentially skill point farmers. So I ended up cashing out a lot of the skills that they have. So most of them are in Jita, and they're just kind of training with +5s. And since I've been doing just a lot of like just skill training on a lot of the tunes, and also just working on funds. If you guys don't know, most of the time whenever I do a video over a fit or something, I'm buying that ship and that fit outright on live. And after so many iterations and so many videos, I kind of have to throttle back a little bit and worry about funding and things, because none of that stuff is cheap. So a lot of the benefit of me actually kind of like going on hiatus for a little while is just to kind of like stop spending and kind of plus up the wallet for the most part. But we're out here today in the Mackinac. This tune is still fully active as a miner, and I'm just trying to make this tune as well rounded, or a single tune as well rounded as possible. We had a lot of our skill points kind of spread out a little bit. Most of our alts didn't have like crystal training and things like that, so I think it's going to be a lot more beneficial for me to just kind of run solo with this Mackinac for the most part until situations change. As far as operating in nullsec, yes, one of my alts is still operating in nullsec, which we'll probably do some videos over that to continue that series. But as far as solo mining goes, we're going to continue just kind of doing what we've been doing, do some mining, do some chatting. But one thing I want to do today is answer some questions that I've gotten on the YouTube channel, and I want to try to do this as much as possible and try to answer as many questions as possible that I get. So if you do have questions, the best way to get them to me is to leave them on any of the solo mining episode videos. That way, when I go to kind of pull questions for a video, I know where to look. But let's start off with the first question here. This is from Mike Ross. He said, "I love your videos, man. Pretty chill. Thank you very much." He's got one question. He's at a crossroads. He's going to go full miner, and he doesn't know if he should go Exumer or mining crystals, moon mining crystals first. Both are about 20-ish days. What should he go for? In my opinion, I think you could go probably Exumer, as long as you have a lot of those secondary and tertiary support skills for that. You'll probably get more bang for your buck going for Exumer. As far as moon mining crystals, your modulated strip miners are going to be a little bit more taxing on your CPU and power. If you don't have those support skills, then it might end up just being kind of a wash, and you might have to go to Exumer anyway. Going into a Hulk, especially if you are working in a corporation that allows you to be boosted, the Hulk is going to be a lot better suited to kind of run those modulated strip miners for that. I think your goal should be both. I think that you should get Exumer first, and then you won't feel so much pressure from the moon mining crystals, because you're going to have probably a better yield result from just going into Exumer than going straight to the moon mining crystals. So I hope that answers that question. The next question is, how do I avoid PvP? Most NPC stations in Null have a lot of PvPers stationed there. Well, for the most part, I don't really operate in PvP or in NPC nullsec. Mostly for that reason. It's kind of a hotbed for PvP content. I mean, if you are not affiliated with an alliance or a corporation in nullsec and you want to go out and find kills, then yeah, you're going to go to NPC null. Just like if you were a miner and you're not affiliated with a alliance or corporation, then that looks also very lucrative, and that's why people go there. because they're looking for other unaffiliated players to get content from. For me, I just know people in nullsec, so a lot of my time in nullsec is spent in kind of a soft space. Now that doesn't mean that you can't operate in NPC null. NPC null is a great place. You can make a lot of money. It's just your strategy has to change. You're not going to mine or do PvE content the same way in NPC null as you would in Sov null. So just adjusting your expectations there. I think as a miner, to avoid PvP, you would just be mine something that's quick and nimble, like a expeditionary frigate or something like that. The next question comes from Mark Serrano, and when appraising ore, do you appraise the ore's repros value, the materials that it repros is into, since there's not always buy orders for the ore itself? It really kind of depends, but most of the time I judge the value based on ISK per M3, because most of the time the ISK per M3 value is relatively tied to the mineral content of that ore. But for the most part, I look at ISK per M3 because I want to value what a full load in a single ship is worth per trip. So if I'm going out there with a venture, I want to get the most ISK I can packed into that venture. So most of the time, I'm going to be looking at things that are really, really high ISK per M3. And if you don't really worry, if you're like operating or mining and then storing the ore in the same system, it doesn't really matter. You can kind of just mine everything for the most part. But when evaluating what to mine, I definitely want to get the most ISK stacked in that mining hold as possible. Next question is from Sour Punch, and I've been thinking about doing nullsec mining, but you've been low-sec gas extracting, and it seems much more profitable. Should I change to null mining, or is gas better? Gas is going to be better because the amount of people doing it are far less than the people that are mining in nullsec. It can be a little tedious. Like there can be days where you cannot find a gas site and it can be kind of obnoxious for your daily income, because in nullsec you can just kind of go out and mine. Otherwise, if you don't have like dreads, or if you don't have like a player fleet rolling through, nothing is really stopping you from mining. But availability of gas sites can technically stop you. But it's always going to be gas in null and low-sec is always going to be more profitable than null-sec mining, unless you're going for bonus frac, like R64 bonus frac moons, or with Mercoxis mining, or something that's really, really lucrative. So I think that if you're doing really well in low-sec with gas mining, you can just hang out there and do that. Or you can attempt to do both. Like you can find like a low-sec system that you're operating in, and then also at the same time you can maybe have a next door null system that you can pop in and do things from time to time. Alright, next question comes from Fruit Jam, and it is, so if one was far away in terms of skills for the next tier, still flying a venture, but has the money to spend on Omega, would you recommend upgrading? Would it be faster? Upgrading, if you're going to buy Omega if you're flying a venture, yes, spending the money is going to be faster by and large. If you watch the beginning of the solo mining series, it took several months, a little, like almost, I want to say like 7 to 8 weeks to go full bore and grind out to pay for Omega with ISK alone. If you catch like Omega on sale, that's a good way to like kind of get in there. I do recommend, if you do plan on if you want to pay for your Omega through gameplay, but you need to invest that first month with cash, then go for it on sale, and then plan that during that window of that purchased Omega time, really hit your grind hard, gets the skills right, to make sure that when you get ready to like come off of that paid one, you can just kind of extend it with ISK and things. But yes, to answer your question, buying Omega is always going to be faster than mining for it, because it takes almost zero time to swipe a card. Even with a max skilled miner or PvE or whatever the case may be, it's still, coming up with the whatever it is now, like close to 3 bill for Omega. It can still take a minute, so yeah, It's always faster to just buy it. All right, next question is from Factional Show. The question: if I deploy my own upwell structure to the corp that I'm in, does the CEO of the corp have the ability to unanchor my structure? Yes. If the CEO suddenly disbands the corp, what will happen to my deployed structure? The thing here is the CEO of the corporation is always going to have every right and every ability that he can delegate out to other people. Now, in order to anchor structures, you have to have the appropriate roles, which the CEO has. And once you deploy that structure for that corporation, it technically, on paper, becomes the property of the corporation. So you have to be in communication with that corporation and know exactly what the situation would be in all those different scenarios. But yes, and also for you to even drop a structure, the CEO would have to give you the exact roles in order to do that. So it's not like members can just kind of willy-nilly drop structures for a corporation whenever they want. So if you're still interested, if I know this was like 3 weeks ago, but if you're still actually figuring out and all that stuff, make sure you just communicate with your corporation, because even though an Athnor is not necessarily expensive in terms of like all the other structures that you can buy, it's still an investment, and it still is going to be owned according to, like, if you were going to like if something happened and you were going to contact CCP or whatever the case may be, they're going to look at it in terms of like, well, you anchored the structure for the corporation, so the corporation thereby has ownership, so there's nothing they can really do about it. So if you absolutely want to do something or have a safe spot in wherever you're operating, you could also just go with a POS in that regard. But yeah, just letting you know, structures will become property of the corporation if you deploy them for that corporation. All right, here's another question from Fusion. I've gotten the hang of using DScan in faction warfare, but what do you do to get warp bubbles to show up? Is there a filter that shows capsulators plus bubbles? And there you can pretty much set your filter to anything. When you go to adjust your filter in your overview settings, you can select all player ships, pirate ships, things like that. The warp bubbles will be in the deployable. I believe they're in the deployable category for that. So let's go ahead and I want to open up these here. You can search too. So if I just type in warp here, deployable mobile warp disruptor, that's going to be that. You have warp gate, warp scammable battery. So just have a bunch of ships, player ships shown, and then have this mobile warp disruptor here selected, and that will give you the filter that you're looking for. All right, next question is from user some characters. Do you ever rent? Have you've read in BIOSes and HiSec discussing renting as solo players? Never tried it myself. Wondering if you had any kind of experience. Yes, I have. I've rented before. Back when I very first started doing things solo, I rented soft space. It's completely possible to do it, even as a solo player. I don't necessarily like the additional cost that it incurs, especially since my playtime isn't very, consistent. Because if you do rent, even as a solo player or a small corp, in order to like not kind of break even or lose money on that transaction, you really kind of need to plan out your daily or your monthly or your weekly activities so that you're paying your rent and you're doing enough to kind of make a profit for all the fun stuff above it. Even as a solo player, doing just regular minimal mining and stuff like that, it's 100% possible. The systems can vary in cost depending on if they're dead end, if they have ice, how many planets they have, what type of planets they have, if they're really interesting in terms of like PI or if stuff like that. So you really have to kind of get with the alliance that controls that soft to like get a price list. But as a solo player, I would not spend more than a couple of bill on a rent system if you had to go the rent route. Some of these systems can go upwards to like 8 or more bill depending on what they kind of contain, and also the availability can be kind of you might have to wait a while for a system to become available. A lot of null systems that are very nice to have will be rented out for the next foreseeable future. And most systems that are cheap and aren't rented and are available are pretty much for a good reason. Maybe it's a system that a lot of newts come through. Maybe it's on the pipeline from the regional gate. So if the system is cheap and it stays unrented, there's probably a good reason. So you just have to kind of do your research with that using .land. You can see, you know, how many jumps in that system in a 30-minute period or a day period or whatever the case may be. So the thing about renting is just doing your research and making sure you prepare yourself to cover those costs. But it's definitely doable, and I've done it. I don't do it anymore. I know people in Sob Null, so I kind of just, you know, hang out with them in their corporations on certain alts. Love your content, appreciate it very much. I'm interested to know how you solo seed all of the setup, the ships, CCs, and so on. This is in terms of one of my nullsec, solo nullsec living videos for PI. Most alliances in Sob Null are going to have some sort of jump freighter service, and that is going to be a corporation, and you can access their jump rating service and their calculator and stuff through their website for the most part. But for this particular situation, what I did was I essentially just utilized the Alliance jump freighting service. So I bought all my stuff in Jita, did a courier contract out to where I was going, and, you know, in a few days it was where it needed to be. Now, if that was not an option, I would be using a jump freighter like a Ray or something like that to jump my own stuff, which I don't do much anymore because it does involve maintaining and seeding a jump route, which can be just kind of tedious, because unless you're kind of keeping up on those jump freight routes, structures change hands, systems change hands. So like if you have a system or a structure that changes hands or gets destroyed, you have to modify that route so that you don't, you know, jump into that system and are left with a nasty surprise. But yes, for the most part, look at your alliance information. They probably have a jump freighter service. It's a pretty common thing now, but that's how I seeded for all that. We'll do the last question here. This is Carrie Vaught. What do you do in the background when you're AFK mining? If I'm not watching a show, I usually play another game. It really depends. I can either be working on another video or working on another character, doing either DED sites or PI or project discovery. It just kind of varies. I don't really watch shows when I'm AFK mining because I've already got the mining sounds going off, and like I use those as cues for changing lasers and things like that. So most of the time it's just doing other prep work or doing other stuff in Eve that doesn't really require any audible awareness. But that is going to be it for the questions. We're going to go ahead and we've already filled up and everything, and this turned into be a pretty good video. I kind of like doing the whole question stuff, so if you guys have more questions, let me know, and we'll try to hit it up in every episode. But for the most part, as far as moving forward with this series, we're going to be kind of just doing what we've normally done, and we're going to keep mining, kind of keep chatting, kind of keep hanging out. Look for the nullsec living series to kind of make I'll maybe make another episode for that once I kind of dust off that character and see how it's doing. One of the big benefits of actually taking hiatuses when playing Eve is to get past kind of really big gaps in training. If there's a really, like, most of the time my hiatuses aren't really aligned with like a certain skill, but if I know I'm gonna go on a 30-day hiatus, I'll try to put like a 30-day skill in my queue that I've been, kind of, ticking away at or avoiding for the most part, so that when I do come back, it's done and we can, kind of move on. I've already kind of audited all my characters since I've, kind of come back, and everybody's gotten like some crystal stuff done and some other ship command stuff. But for the most part, we are kind of just business as usual. And as far as stockpiling, I know the last time, in one of the last episodes, or like the last group of episodes, I was talking a lot about getting into industry and doing some manufacturing. I think that's still probably the goal, but it's really going to kind of depend on what I find useful to make a lot of our BPCs and our BPOs are fully researched now in nullsec, so we'll be trying to utilize those in tutorials and things like that to try to make some stuff, whether it be fuel blocks or if it's making Sino stuff out there. That stuff sells really, really well. But thank you guys for watching. I know a lot of people had questions about where I was at for a while, but hopefully this video answers that. And I will see you guys in the next one. Peace out.